Hello strangers and story lovers, and welcome to my lair. Please ignore the fact that these are clearly wolf ears. I'm very obviously a rat today. I'm trying. Anyway, I'm Morgan, and today we're going to be talking about Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldry. So, truth be told, I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did. Now, don't get me wrong, I was expecting to like the book just fine, but I'm generally more of an adventure gal, so the cozy, low stakes kind of vibe, I was expecting to find it a little bit frustrating because when I read something low stakes, usually I just kind of want to shove the characters into a world of chaos. Which I thought would be the case here, but no. I just really ended up reading this book because I wanted to read a book, have a book club with my mother, and she's a delicate little flower and I struggle to read anything that doesn't have supernatural element in it, so it's sometimes a little bit hard to find common ground, but cozy fantasy sounds just about right. So we gave it a try. And yeah, I know, not being able to read anything that doesn't have supernatural elements in it, yeah, very specific, but what can I say? I love escapism. Have you seen The World? Thought so. But yeah, back to Legends and Lattes. I loved it. In fact, there's even one point in the story where it started to feel like there would be like a teeny tiny bit of adventure, like higher stakes, a little bit of involved activities coming in. And I was like, no, 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 you keep making coffee and pastries now. But look at me, I'm rambling already. Let's just get back on track. I will start with a spoiler-free section where I'll just kind of detail my general thought about the book, and then I'll have a spoiler zone where I'll just go into everything, every plot detail. But don't worry, I will let you know when to jump off to avoid the nasty little spoilers. After a lifetime of bounties and bloodshed, Viv is hanging up her sword for the last time. The battle-weary orc aims to start fresh, opening the first ever coffee in the city of Thune. But old and new rivals stand in the way of success, not to mention the fact that no one has the faintest idea what coffee actually is. If Viv wants to put the blade behind her and make her plans a reality, she won't be able to do it alone. But the true rewards of the enchanted path are the travelers you meet along the way, and whether drawn together by ancient magic, flaky pastry, or a freshly brewed cup, they may become partners, family, and something deeper than she ever could have dreamed. So yeah, we're basically following former mercenary Viv as she tries to open a coffee shop in a city that basically has never heard about what coffee is. Which is a bold move, but then again, the competition is not going to be too nasty. I really, really like this book. It was just like such an enjoyable read with just like excellent style and perfect vibe. I'm already a huge fan of coffee, maybe too much of a fan if you ask some people. So yeah, for me, just like sitting down reading an ode to coffee just felt perfect. There was a lot of very sweet moments and very cute scenes, and I've read it over the Christmas holidays going back to my family's place, and my sister was basically just making fun of me the whole time for how many times I was just squealing. And yeah, all I really wanted to do while reading was just like curl up on the couch with like a cozy blanket and grab a steaming mug of warm coffee. All the descriptions of like smells and tastes were just like amazing, very nice and delicate and just like mouth watering. It was like, and I have also never been that freaking invested in the update of a damn menu. If you know, you know. But anyway, let's start with the positives, shall we? First off, the characters. I got so attached to the characters, it was just kind of ridiculous. I just wanted to take them all and wrap them in the most comfortable little blanket and then sit them on the couch in front of a fireplace with a warm drink, but obviously they did not need my help for that. They were just all very sweet with very distinct voices and mannerism and personality in general. They felt very unique. To the point that I can't now say without thinking of Cal. And the thing that I liked as well is that it felt very natural. Like, you know, sometimes when you give certain tics to characters, be it physical or verbal, it can just feel very artificial, like it's the only thing that keeps this character going and give them flavor. But here it wasn't the case. It just like added something on top of a very cool personality that was already there. It just made them more believable. And while I did love all the characters, my absolute favorite was Thimble. I would die for Thimble. Second thing that I really liked was the style. I don't know, this book just had no right being so well written. But yeah, I think that's what really made it work for me. I've said it before, but I thought the description of like the tastes and the smells of the coffee and all the pastries were just like excellent and mouth-watering. And the reactions to the characters who were trying those things for the first time was just also like always amazing and just like peak satisfaction. I was just like reading and I was like, yes, this is exactly how you should be reacting to this. And it just felt like an ode to like coffee and pastries and coffee shop in general, and it made me crave coffee like nothing else. Like, thank you, I already drink too much coffee as it is. You don't need to make me crave it on top of it. I even looked for cinnamon rolls recipe online when I was reading, and I hate baking, but this book put me in the mood for baking, even though I cannot stand baking. That's how good this was. Third thing I loved about this book was the vibes. I guess you could count it a little bit as cheating here, because technically the vibes, the writing, you can kind of put that in the same category, but I just kind of want to make it stand out because it's connected, but it's not the same. And listen, I always want to curl up on a couch and have a cup of coffee when I read, but this made me crave it. Like, I needed it, I wanted it. I just needed some coffee with me while I was reading, because otherwise I was feeling like I was wasting my life. And one thing that I honestly just really enjoyed when I was reading is the fact that because it's a fantasy setting, a lot of the things that we are just personally used to, like iced coffee, cinnamon rolls, lattes, and things like this, they don't exist. So the characters have to just like come up with the ideas, invent it, and just be creative. And it was such a delight to see them coming to these conclusions of those things that I already know and like, and have them make these discoveries like they're the wildest thing ever, and just being like, oh my god, we're geniuses, this is so good. And to see the reaction of all the characters to like those things that are mundane for us, but for them it was just like so all in all, it just really read like an ode to things we kind of take for granted. And the writing style was just overall so nice that every time you had those moments of rediscovering something, it really felt like a rediscovery for me as well. And so I found myself sometimes just thinking like, oh my god, yes, we live in such a perfect world where cinnamon rolls exist. But yeah, that's it for the positives, so let's talk about the negatives. And it's time to be ridiculously nitpicky, because there were a few things that were just not very realistic. Listen, I did not care. I gave this book a 5 stars, and I don't think this book has any business being realistic. I did not want it to be realistic. I wanted for everything to be perfect all the time. To me, this negative point doesn't really count, but I'm just still mentioning it because while I was reading, that's something my mum mentioned, and so I was just like, yeah, you know what? She's not wrong. So I'm just saying it because I know it matters to some people, so if I can think of it, or if I know there is a thing that could bother some people, I'm going to mention it. To me, But yeah, if you're someone who just really struggles suspending your disbelief on something, this might be an issue. Or if you're not as transported as I was, maybe those elements will like stand out a bit more. I don't know, I'm just mentioning it. First of all, this was probably the least realistic coffee anyone's ever had. As I've said, I'm a huge fan of coffee. I don't think you can like it the first time you try it. Who has enjoyed the first cup of coffee they've ever had? You can say you did in the comments if you want. I will know you're lying. Nobody likes the first cup of coffee in their life. It's just really more of an acquired taste, to be honest. Let's be realistic. And so all the characters being just like, oh, this is so good. I will have 10 more, please. No. You need to have had at least 20. I might be exaggerating, but at least 20 cups of coffee before you actually start liking it. I'm sorry, this is the rule. I don't make them, I just follow them. Yeah, I'm sorry, just coffee is an acquired taste. It is what it is. Also, the way they solve one of the main conflicts, yeah, also not very realistic. Again, for me it didn't bother me because I didn't want this conflict to be solved the realistic way, so I was just happy with how it got resolved. But it's not very realistic, so you could struggle a little bit with that, potentially. But yeah, I think that's already it for the spoiler-free zone. Quick one, I assume, but yeah, that's it. So now we're going to venture into the spoiler zone, so if you want to avoid any spoilers, now's your chance to leave. Just, before you do, leave a like if this was in any way helpful, or if you just liked my a rat costume, not wolf, rat. Go read Legends and Lattes and then come back, finish the review and see if we agree. You are now officially walking into the spoiler zone, so you will get spoiled. You have been warned. So the story starts with Viv's last job as a mercenary, where we see her kick some monster's ass and then retrieve the stone that's in the monster's head, I think. It's called a Scarvet Stone, and it's meant to be bringing good luck to its owner. And boy, is Viv going to need some good luck on her journey to become a coffee shop owner. So after a brutal first scene, Viv says goodbye and farewell to her mercenary companions, who are all pretty confused and baffled as to why she's suddenly leaving them behind without explanation. But Viv doesn't really care, and she leaves for the city of Thune, where she will be starting her new life. So we see her purchase an old library that she decides that she's going to renovate into her coffee shop with the help of a hob called Calamity, Cal for short, that she hired from the docks. And Cal is awesome. He's your grumpy, reliable, hardworking fellow who doesn't say much but gets things done. So they get the renovation work done, they clean up the place, they make it pretty, they set up the table and everything. And as she does, she gets the visit of the local mafia, who basically tell her that she has to pay a safety fee. She has to pay this tax to the Madrigal or else. So we're already setting the conflict here. Cool. I was enjoying my renovation project and wasn't really looking forward to a plot, but okay, thank you. Viv makes it clear that she has absolutely zero intention to pay, and she's also making it very, very clear to everyone that she's a badass coffee mama. Oh, so you're a city official? Viv smiled, and this time she didn't concern herself with how prominent her lower fangs were. She approached him so that their difference in stature was even more apparent. She was pretty sure she knew exactly what this man was, and until recently, she'd have had him by the throat and off the ground already. He didn't adjust his posture an iota, smiling back. Not as such. I just consider it my civic duty to welcome new arrivals and to take an interest in their welfare. I'll consider myself welcome then. I didn't catch your name. You didn't. But fair exchange is no robbery. Didn't catch yours either. Indeed. I don't suppose you mind giving me a little preview of your new... He looked around at the cart and waved a gloved hand. Venture. Trade secret. Oh well, I wouldn't want to pry. I'm glad to hear that. I wish I were that cool. Viv and Cal keep working after that. Viv tries to explain to Cal the concept of coffee, but he's just very confused and starts calling it bean water, which I find stupidly hilarious. Cal is such a vibe. I cannot say just how hyped I was for him to try his first cup of coffee. She handed him the cup. He made a big show of sniffing at it. He raised his eyebrows and nodded a little. Very slowly and very delicately, he sipped at it. Then he held it in his hand and stood there. After what Viv considered an overly generous few moments, she couldn't help herself. Well? Said Cal. I'll allow. It's actually not that terrible. Which, for Cal, is an amazing compliment. I squealed when I read this. Even though, again, as mentioned before, nobody likes their first cup of coffee. But I will take happiness over realism. After that, Viv goes to post a job offer on the town's job board because she feels like she's going to need an assistant. And of course my first reaction was, love the optimism, Viv. Don't you want to see if you have clients first? But she did well not listening to me because the assistant she got is Tandri, who is very cool. She's this cool and confident succubus who's basically Viv's marketing department. And let's be honest, Viv would have never gotten anywhere without Tandri. I wrote food service experience in the notice. You have that? Tandri's expression didn't falter in the slightest. I do not. The succubus inclined her head at Viv. Do you? Viv's mouth hung open for a moment, until she eventually managed. I do not. I am willing to learn. That was higher up on the notice. I wish I could channel my inner Tandri next time I have a job interview. Also, the scene where Cal and Tandri meet is very cute. Because everything that happens in this book is very cute. I swear more of my highlights on Kindle for this book are just like, cute. And we haven't even met Thimble yet. Charmed, said Cal, executing a deep bow. It's nice work, said Tandri, gesturing to the interior. I remember what it used to look like. The hob puffed up a little bit at that, and Viv was sure she saw him struggling not to smile, but he only nodded and said, inevitably, Typical. And after that, Cal hangs up the coffee shop sign that reads, Legends and Lattes. I love everything. But then Cal has to leave because his work is done, and it's so sad. Seeing as how you're all set and I'm paid up, he said, looking down at the table. Suppose the work's done, as far as that goes. Plenty to be getting on with down at the docks, of course. Well, I hope you'll come by, said Viv. It was hard to keep the disappointment out of her voice. She'd gotten used to having him around. You stop in, you'll have coffee whenever you want it. I hope you do. Might just do that, the need arises, he said. Viv thrust her hand at him. Don't be a stranger, Cal. He returned the shake, his hand swallowed by hers. You neither, Viv. Been good work. Somehow, from him, the words were touching. It was good to meet you, Cal, said Tandri. Then, with a nod and another small bow to both of them, he left. Viv's heart broke a little to see him go. And so did mine! It feels like I'm the one losing a friend here. Luckily, he comes back a lot, so my heart is only half broken. Anyway, Tandri has the very basic yet absolutely brilliant idea to post an ad on the town board for the grand opening of the coffee shop and to offer free samples. And yes, of course, free samples? Viv, how did you not think about that in a town that doesn't know what coffee is? That's how you get them. You need to corrupt them. That's how coffee works. And yeah, good thing Tandri is our marketing department on her own because the strategy pays off. The next day, they have 3 customers. And I know that 3 doesn't sound like much, but one of them is a VIP. The one and only Thimble. The Ratkin approached, got up on his toes to get a good view of the menu and, after a moment, tapped the latte without uttering a word. "Done," said Viv. She set to brewing. As the machine began hissing and grinding and bubbling, her first customers gathered around curiously. The Ratkin squeaked in surprise when the brew began to gush into a mug, his aisle-drop eyes gleaming. Blah blah blah, non-thimble related nonsense. Ah, here we go. He eagerly received the cup and thrust his nose into the curls of steam rising from the golden cream on the surface. After a delicate sip, he closed his eyes, clearly savoring it, and Viv leaned her elbows on the counter to watch. The Ratkin's eyes opened, and he dipped his head in thanks. He quietly took his mug to a booth, where he sipped his drink and kicked his dangling paws. "Tell me, this isn't the cutest reaction ever to drinking coffee!" And he becomes a regular after that for our greatest pleasure. The Ratkin scurried inside first, wafting a cloud of flour, and pointed wordlessly at the latte on the menu. Oh, my heart! So, yeah, Viv and Tandri start having regulars at the coffee shop, including our best boy, Thimble. There's also this incredibly annoying, but also weirdly endearing Akers university student who regularly comes in to study the ley lines inside the shop. Because, yes, Viv picked a spot for her coffee that was in interesting positioning compared to some ley line, because that's what she needed for the Scarlet Stone's magical good luck to work. Anyway, this guy, university student person, his name is Hemington, and he is the worst. He comes to the coffee and orders nothing, like he's doing them a favor. And then they tell him, no, you have to order something. And he's just like, I don't drink anything warm. But maybe if they had something to eat, he would order that. So Viv remembers this cute little ratkin that's a regular in her coffee shop, and every time he arrives it looks like he's just like completely covered in flour. Our boy Thimble. So she asks him if he can bake. Tandri smoothly took up the orders while Viv went to find the ratkin, tucked away in one of the back corner booths, feet swinging, eyes closed, meditating over his steaming mug. But why? He's so cute! The ratkin raised a tentative paw to forestall her. Leaning forward over his drink, in a tiny, breathy voice, he said, "Tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" He nodded again, eagerly, Viv thought. She didn't know whether he had to be on his way or needed a few hours to think, but despite her curiosity, she wasn't going to press the matter. She rapped the table and stood. "I'll look forward to it, Mr." He stared up at her, and in a sullen whisper said, "Thimble." "Thimble," Viv agreed. Then she gave him a nod and returned to the counter. And the next day, Thimble arrives at the coffee shop. That would be a different story. The next day, Thimble arrives at the coffee shop with a bunch of cinnamon rolls, and he is hired on the spot after negotiating his salary like a pro. AKA, he accepts Viv's first offer and shyly asks if he can have free coffee. So now they add cinnamon rolls to the menu. And so you'd think that annoying man Hemington would be happy and would happily order that. But no, because he doesn't eat bread-based food. Also, Viv and Tandri kind of adopt this massive dire cat that's hanging out in the shop. And her name is Amity, and she is kinda cool. Also, one of Viv's former mercenary companion person, an elf called Finnis, visits her shop, and it's pretty clear that they don't really get along and that he's a prick. He also seems to be aware of the Scarlet Stone, which is not a good thing, also because he seems to want it really bad. But Amity chases him away, so we're good for now. We also get introduced to a bard named Tandri who comes in and asks if he can play some music for the customers of the coffee shop. Viv allows him to do so, but it doesn't go very well. He plays some Unusual music, and the customers are a little taken aback. The noise that emerged was unlike anything she'd expected, and all conversation cut short. There was a raw, wailing edge to the notes, much louder than any lute Viv had ever heard before. She flinched, and saw others do the same as Tandri began playing in earnest. The sound the man produced wasn't unmusical, but there was something almost savage about it. She wondered if maybe her trust in the Skalvet stone to draw what she needed here might have been a bit too blind, because if this was its doing... Viv glanced at the patrons, who looked uncomfortable. A few rose as though they were preparing to leave. She started to approach the young man, who, for a wonder, looked fully relaxed at this point, lost in the music. As she drew near, his eyes fluttered open, and he saw her. He glanced around the room and absorbed the shocked expression of the people there, and abruptly stopped playing. Tandri, Viv held up a hand. "Oh gods," he moaned, clearly mortified, and he fled the shop, his lute held before him like a shield. It's just all very silly. Like, the stakes are so low, and yet I react to everything like it's the most earth-shattering event that's ever happened. Stakes are here, emotions are there. Honestly, at some point, my heart just shattered because Thimble wanted a bigger oven because he needed to be able to bake more cinnamon rolls in one go because he's just completely overworked. And while Viv did want to get him a bigger one, she just doesn't have enough room in the kitchen for a bigger oven. Thimble appeared between them, and they looked down. He glanced up at Viv and tugged at the hem of her shirt, pointed at the oven, and spread his arms wide. Sorry, I don't know what you mean, Thimble. His nose wriggled, and he whispered, "Bigger would be better. Bigger!" "The rolls? They're already as big as my head." He shook his head. "Stove! Stove!" Then he quailed, "Sorry, sorry!" Viv glanced over at the oven Cal had installed. Thimble had worked non-stop, and the rolls sold out almost as soon as they cooled. Perhaps demand would taper off a little, but she could certainly see how the pace might run the poor ratkin ragged. A bigger stove would make it easier to stay on top of things. "I'd like to, Thimble, but I don't know how we could fit it in. It's already getting pretty tight back here." Thimble looked downcast for a moment, then he nodded in reluctant agreement. "If only they could keep longer," mused Tandri aloud. "If they didn't have to be fresh, then we could hold them in reserve and take some of the pressure off." Get him a bigger oven. After that, though, and per Tandri's influence, Thimble creates a new recipe of some dried, fruity, nutty biscuits that the customers will be able to dip in their coffee. And this is where the book just completely lost me with the menu updates. I now live for these updates. Okay, every time Tandri updated the menu, I just felt accomplished. And this. Do you know how she calls the biscuits that Thimble makes? Thimblets! Thimblets! Oh, Thimblets! Oh, that's adorable! Thimblets! Oh, Thimblets! Thimblets! And so after that, the plot with the mafia tries to resurface, but honestly, at this point, I just want to know what the next item on the menu is gonna be. So when Viv calls her old friends and they offer her to just like help her kick the Madrigal's ass, all I can think of is just like, yeah, cool, can we talk about coffees and cinnamon rolls again? Which I'll say is very uncharacteristic for me. I do love my adventures usually. And Tandri starts insisting that Viv shouldn't solve this conflict through violent means, because if she wants to leave her old life behind, she should also leave her old ways behind. Which, to me, felt a little bit contrived to try and find a pacifist solution. Especially because the solution that they do end up finding is a little bit forced and just ends up leaving everyone else other than Viv at the mercy of the Madrigal, which, yeah, no, yeah. So basically what ends up happening is that Viv is taken to an audience to the Madrigal after asking for one. And the Madrigal, much to Viv's surprise, is a cute old lady. A tall, elderly woman sat ensconced in one of the armchairs, her silver hair in a severe bun, her face regal, but not unkind. She was crocheting a fresh doily, and took her time completing a round before absently looking at Viv. To Viv, it was blindingly clear from her bearing, and from the deference Slack showed, that this was, indeed, the Madrigal. So the Madrigal reveals to Viv that she only agreed to the audience because Finnis, of all people, told her about the Scarlet Stone. So things are a bit tense at first, because Viv just kind of assumes that the Madrigal wants the Scarlet Stone. But apparently... no. She just wants to be paid in cinnamon rolls. So Thimble saved the day! Yes! So, it's cute, and like I said, it's not like I wanted a full-on fight against the Mafia, but still, I can't help but think of all the other shop owners who still have to pay that damn safety tax. So, that did annoy me a little bit, but hey. And Viv gets away with paying the Madrigal in cinnamon rolls. But not all is well, because now it's clear that Finnis wants the Scarlet Stone. But let's get back to what really matters, shall we? The next item on the menu are iced drinks, which, once again, made me very happy. Yes, I love iced coffee. I'll have 3, please. So now, Hemington, the university student, is finally happy with one of the items on the menu. And then Thimble invents chocolate and Tandri almost comes on the spot. Girl. Same. And yeah, with that he made chocolate croissant. And we get our next item on the menu. So everything is going well. They are starting to get a lot of clients and the Madrigal is off their backs. So Tandri very shyly invites Viv on a celebratory date. I mean picnic. I mean date. I mean picnic. And it's adorable. Go get it, girl. Tandri opened her mouth to speak, then fidgeted the basket to her other arm, and finally said, "What do you have planned for the evening?" "Planned? Nothing. I'm usually bushed and turn in early. A bite to eat first, maybe." "Oh, good. I thought that, given how things went, we should celebrate, if you'd like." Viv wasn't sure she'd ever seen Tandri properly nervous before. She had to admit, it was charming. Nervous Tandri and semi-oblivious Viv is gold. Also, Tandri the musician has been coming back consistently, playing some more traditional music at first, and that has received the approval of the customers. He actually becomes relatively popular with that, so Viv at some point tells him that if he wants to try his more conceptual music again, he can do it. He basically has her blessings. So he does, and he becomes even more popular to the point that now some of the customers come specifically to see him. So Viv officially hires him as a musician for the coffee shop, and it's super sweet. To compensate from being an insufferable prick, Hemington helps Viv install ward inside the coffee shop that will warn her if there's an intruder. Which really pays off when Finnis decides to be a prick and tries to rob Viv, and the alarm system help her and she's able to catch him on the act. He's clearly annoyed though, and it's very obvious that he's going to try and rob her again, and Viv is quite convinced that he's just going to try a completely different and more drastic approach but they just do not know when and when, but the wards are probably not gonna help this time. So it gets intense, and it's a bit like they have this sword hanging above their heads and they just don't know when it's gonna fall. So Tandri decides that she's gonna stay the night with Viv, just so at least she's not alone if something happens. So it's very sweet, they get to live together for a while. Less sweet though when Amity the dire cat wakes them up in the middle of the night and the building is burning. Oh, wow. Damn. I didn't think Venus would go that far. So Viv tries to save as much as she possibly can from the fire, including the coffee machine. So she does that before rushing out with Tandri and just watch the whole building crumble down in front of them from the middle of the street. And it is heartbreaking. They stood stunned in the street, baking in the heat rippling from the building. The roof began to creak and snap, and in a shuddering slope, it collapsed, tiles pouring into the room below, where they glowed bright red in the pools of green flame. Standing in their small clothes beside the tumbled lockbox and the coffee maker, Tandri's hand found Viv's and gripped it tight. She coughed, her eyes watering. Viv stared into the shop, her face set. The big table began to sag to the side, half buried under cherry-bright tiles, to crumble over the place where the scarlet stone lay. She squeezed Tandri's hand back. At least we didn't lose everything. So yeah, it's very sad. They basically just stand there in the middle of the street and watch this building burn, this beautiful project that they had and that they all build together as other people come around and witness the disaster. But, you know, as Viv said, at least they haven't lost everything. At least they still have each other, and a familiar voice whispered, "Oh no!" Viv blinked in recognition. She turned her head and squinted at the unfocused shape of Thimble. I demand blood. And of course, when Viv gets back to check on the Scarlet Stone, it's gone. So now Viv feels like she's lost the source of her luck, so she's not even sure if she'll be able to make it happen again, especially considering that she's basically running low on money at this point. So yeah, she just doesn't know if she'll ever be able to make her dream happen. Tandri invites Viv to stay at her place, but Viv is just distraught by the massive loss. Luckily, she has amazing friends, and Cal comes around to witness the disaster and does the most Cal thing that Cal can do. "Cal," she rasped and nodded. She didn't feel as though she'd slept at all. "First thing to get a handle on is cleanup," he said without preamble. "Then materials, then labor. Need more in me and you this time." "What are you talking about?" she asked, and there was an edge of irritation in her voice. "Building, of course. Ash is cold. We'll get it shifted. Maybe 8-10 trips to the midden. Hired hand or two will speed it up fine." He just immediately thinks of rebuilding, without Viv even having to ask for it. He just knows he's gonna be there to help. This is just too sweet. Viv is annoyed because she doesn't have enough money for all the rebuilding, so she just kind of lashes out at Cal and Tandri, which is totally unfair, and I kind of get it. But I kind of like that she reacts like this, because it just shows all the pain she's feeling and how powerless she feels, and it's just heartbreaking. Also, it just doesn't last really long, so she doesn't really have time to get on my nerves about it, which I really appreciated. Because it's really typically the kind of behavior that I can just like tolerate for so long in a story. But here I thought it was just really nicely done, and it lasted as long as it needed. It's just kind of relatable. Of course, you'd be devastated if you put all your money and energy into making your dream happen, and when it's finally starting to look like you're getting there, you just like lose everything and just goes into dust, and you know you don't have any of the resources left to make it happen again. So, of course, you're going to feel a lot of anger, and you're not going to necessarily aim it in the right direction, unfortunately. So, yeah, while her lashing out at Cal and Tandri wasn't cool, it just felt really natural. And again, it didn't last very long, so it didn't feel too harmful. It just felt relatable. To me, at least. And yeah, Tandri just ends up calming a little bit, relatively quickly actually. And then they kiss, and it's adorable. And then they start rebuilding. And Pendry, bless his soul, starts helping again. And of course, he refuses to let Viv pay him for the labor. And just, my heart is melting. Of course, my heart is melting. Bless all those people. Viv is still pretty unsure how she's going to get everything rebuilt without coins, but it turns out a lot of people, random people, just kind of want their coffee back, and so they start helping. And also, the freaking Madrigal starts helping, like sending her little grunts to help. Which asks the question, how good are the cinnamon rolls? So Thimble comes around with snacks for everyone, so that puts a little bit of a nice atmosphere on the construction site. Hemington offers to make some fire protection walls for the building, which is really nice. I guess he ain't all that bad for an annoying guy. All in all, they manage not only to rebuild, but to make everything bigger and better. A better bedroom with a proper bed for Viv and Tandri, a bigger kitchen with an amazing oven for Thimble, and a nice little stage for Pendry to play his music on. The coffee shop is better than ever, so thanks Venice, I guess. They celebrate for the grand reopening, they hang the new menu that not only has all of the items we know and love, but also the line, "What the flames could not consume never shall be extinguished." And I lost it a little. Why is this book so damn sweet? Viv gathers her crew, meaning Tandri, Cal, and Thimble, to tell them how much they mean to her and give them part of the coffee shop. It's very sweet. They start drinking some brandy to celebrate, and Thimble starts coughing because he can't handle alcohol, the poor little thing. Also, at some point, it's revealed that the Scarlet Stone probably doesn't bring good luck, but more like-minded people. So it's like it brings you people who are like you around so you can have awesome friends. So it's basically kind of like a karma stone. So instead of making her business blossom, it just attracted awesome people all around Viv because Viv is awesome. So if you're a dick, it'll attract some other dickish individuals around you, so suck on that, Finnis. Speaking of Finnis, the epilogue is basically him running away from some Madrigal lackeys and escaping them, only to get tackled by Amity. Not sure exactly what that means for Finnis, but bad time is guaranteed for him, so that's good enough in my book. Karma got you, bitch. And yeah, that's it for the story, so now let's talk about the characters. Let's start with Viv, shall we? Viv is really cool and sweet. It's really fun to see her go for her dream and watch her meet all the right people to help her support her. I like the fact that she seems to be the kind of person who will go for unlikely people and give them a chance. Like going for a tiny hob like Cal to help her renovate a whole building, or giving Tandri her chance even though she doesn't have any experience with like the food and hospitality industry, or asking a little rat king to be her baker, or giving Pendry a second chance when he almost scared off her customers the first time he tried playing music in her coffee shop. And yet, all of the time she took a chance on someone, it just ends up paying up for her in the most satisfying way. And it's just really sweet to see all the time. And yeah, to see them at the end all work together to help her rebuild, not only to just thank her for taking a chance on them, but also just because she built something that they all love and they want in their life. It was just adorable. It was great. Also, she just is my kind of gal. Big, muscly, sweetheart babe. Of course I love her. So now let's talk about Tandri, aka Legend and Lattes marketing department. I really like Tandri too, with her no-nonsense attitude and just her confidence. She's very badass too in her own way. She arrives in the coffee shop with zero experience, like almost demands the job, and takes charge almost immediately the second she realizes that Viv has no idea what she's doing. She's just like, we need to make an announcement that the coffee is open. Also, you need to have free samples. Also, we need a menu. Also, you need to let your customer knows how much they're paying for things. Yes, okay, the price is gonna be that. Also, let me write the description of the items on the menu because nobody knows what coffee is. Also, her copywriting is on point. Coffee. Exotic, aroma and rich, full-bodied roast. Latte. A sophisticated and creamy variation. Any drink, iced. A refined twist. Cinnamon roll. Heavenly frosted cinnamon pastry. Thimblets. Crunchy nut and fruit delicacies. Midnight croissants. Buttery fold over with a sinful center. The romance between Viv and Tandri was also pretty sweet and satisfying. I just liked them together, they were sweet. They complete each other well, having their strength in like different areas, and they just made for a good team. They support each other emotionally too. Initially, Viv shows a teeny tiny lack of tact when she meets Tandri, and she kind of insinuates that because she's a succubus, she might have certain inclination. Nothing too bad, but Tandri rightfully calls her out immediately on it, and Viv apologizes profusely, and that's that. And after that, Viv just barely notices she's a succubus, which is great because it seems like it's a little bit of a traumatizing thing for Tandri to have people just assume things about her just because she's a succubus and never being able to move beyond this first idea of her. And so they just have certain expectations for her because of that. And she used to go to the Akers University, the same one that Hemington goes to. And she ends up dropping out of it because of all of the other students and professors' prejudices against her. And at some point she admits that to Viv, who's just like, oh, well, screw them then. And it's a very nice moment, and you can tell that this is just exactly what Tandri needed to hear. Yeah, in return, when Viv just loses everything, Tandri is there to support her emotionally, and it's just very sweet. Let's talk about Cal now. Cal is just very cool. Kind of grumpy, solid, reliable guy. He's just the type of person who seems to think that if they compliment something or someone, they're just going to like catch fire and burn alive. But somehow still very endearing and sweet. You know, it's like when Viv first tells him about coffee and he just starts calling it bean water, which for some reason is just endlessly funny to me. And then when he actually drinks the thing, he's just like, huh, it's alright. Which obviously in Cal's language means, oh my god, it's delicious, I will have 5. But can't be caught saying that, obviously. Later, they sat at the big table, each with their own cup. Cal pretended to ignore his, but Viv caught him stealing cautious sips now and then, when he thought she wasn't looking. And of course at the end, the fact that he just assumes that they're going to rebuild the coffee shop together, even though she didn't ask anything. And he's just immediately practical, like, nobody asked him, and he's just like, oh, well, it's going to need this amount of time and this amount of time, and maybe if we hire another person and blah, 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 blah. What do you mean you can't do it? I didn't think you were such a quitter. He's objectively great, but now let's talk about the VIP. Thimble my favorite character. Thimble is just too damn cute. I cannot remember ever squealing this much when reading a book, and like I think 70% of my squealing was due to some things Thimble did. He is just objectively the best, and no, this is not up for debate. He is just so cute, so happy, so excited about everything, but like mostly baking. He just loves making his little pastries, and you can tell just how much fun he's having with just everything, with making them, and when Viv lets him try new recipes and just like experiment with things. And so like the first time he makes his cinnamon rolls, they just sell super fast, but he's just so happy to be doing another batch again, and it's just like, it's so cute, just like bless his little heart. I didn't even get to have one, she said. I would have paid more than 4 bits. Well, you're in luck, said Viv. Seems like you'll get another chance. And I don't like to think what Lainey will do with that broom if we don't remember to set one aside for her too. Thimble was already busily mixing up a new batch, humming again, louder and happier than before. Sir? Why are you so adorable? He also gets very excited about ovens, which is just the cutest thing. Thimble squeaked for emphasis, pointing at a woodcut print in the gnomish catalogue Viv had spread on the countertop. The ratkin stood on the stool to get a proper view. The stove depicted in the advertisement was twice as wide as theirs, with dual extra-large ovens and fireboxes, and a back panel with temperature control gauges and knobs. Viv found it difficult to make out much detail from the woodcut, but the look was very modern, and the listed features set Thimble's eyes sparkling with longing. Oven nerd. A new stove would nearly wipe out her remaining funds, although she was pretty sure they'd recover it in a few months, given the popularity of Thimble's baked goods. The ratkin nodded decisively, but at her expression he hesitated, and then, reluctantly, indicated a less expensive model farther down the page. I can't! Why is he so cute? Just give him a bigger oven! No, Thimble, she said, pointing at him. The best deserve the best, and that's you. I'll have Cal make sure we install it, and I'll put in an order. Yes! Thank you, Viv. Damn right he's the best. So, yes. Basically, Thimble, the best. And that's it for characters. Okay, quickly. Tandri is great. Loved seeing him get more confident. The Madrigal is fun once you get to see her. Love her being a badass grandma. Lainey the neighbor is very fun. Viv's old mercenary friends are great, except for Finnis. He can die in the fire he started. Amity is a queen who deserves the world. And now we're done, so let's wrap this up. I love this book. Such a vibe. And I've said it at the beginning, I really did not expect to like it this much because I'm more of an adventure nerd myself. And here we are. This was great. I had a great time. The style is on point. The characters were great. I just loved hanging out with them with a nice cup of coffee. I loved all the descriptions of coffee and pastries. I imagine it must have been quite the exercise in style for the author, having to come up with those very vivid and interesting descriptions for things that we know but the characters don't. How do you just describe the taste of something everyone knows? How do you describe chocolate? How do you describe to someone how it smells and how it tastes when it's just like such a base element to us? Like, if you had to describe something that smells nice, chocolate is something you could just like come up and say like, yeah, it smells like chocolate, to give someone an impression of something. But I really just loved the descriptions that the author came up with, and it just gave a new appreciation to such simple things. And on that note, I'm just gonna go meditate while I drink my coffee. Anyway, been a pleasure, people, but that's it for Legends and Lattes. Leave a like if you've enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to see more of my face. Thanks for tuning in, and continue to enjoy stories.